Good evening. You're watching AWANI Tonight with me, Saraya Mia. The government announced several investments aimed at boosting the startup ecosystem in Malaysia, including a total investment of 3 billion ringgit in the Southeast Asia and Malaysia ecosystem under the ASEAN Investment Initiative. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim states that the investment amount includes contributions from Khazanah Nasional Berhad, the Employees Provident Fund EPF and Blue Chip Venture Capital.
Last October, in the Malaysia Madani Budget 2024 announcement, I outlined the government's commitment for Malaysian companies, from Bumiputra entrepreneurs to startups, SMEs, and rising champions. The government is also aiming to centralize investment agencies such as MEFCAP under Penjana Capital under Khazanah. In this regard, I am pleased to share that Khazanah Nasional will launch a National Fund of Funds, a Malaysian focus fund with an initial 1 billion ringgit allocation to invest in innovative high-growth companies.
Meanwhile, Anwar, who was also the finance minister, announced the establishment of new offices and funds in the capital involving 12 advanced international firms. The KL20 2024 summit, spearheaded by the Ministry of Economy, is set to reignite Malaysia's position as a leading hub for startups and venture capitalists and elevate Kuala Lumpur into the top 20 global startup hubs by 2030. More than 3,000 participants, including international investors and commercial startup companies, were expected to attend the event.
The KL20 Summit 2020.
International investors recognize that now is the right time to invest in Malaysia. According to the Prime Minister, this confidence relies on the government's stability and good governance, in addition to Malaysia's pro-trade nature and neutral stand.
The announcements today come on the back of last year's record-breaking approved foreign investments amounting to 188 billion ringgit originating from every part of the world. The investment types have also reflected movement into the higher value chain activities as the world shows confidence in what our workforce are capable of.
Malaysia aims to attract global unicorns via the Unicorn Golden Pass to create high-skilled and high-value jobs while developing a pipeline of future entrepreneurs and senior leaders in technology. Economy Minister Rafizi Ramli said at the KL20 Summit at KLCC today that with the right investors and talent in Malaysia, the country can be the Southeast Asian base for global technology companies under this initiative.
In return, we are offering a package of incentives, including exempted fees for employment passes for senior management, subsidized rental, concessionary tax rates on corporate profits, relocation services, and a startup concierge that handles the backroom registration at the start.
Rafizi added that KL20 represented the country's ambition to bring Malaysia to the top 20 startup ecosystems in the world. The KL20 Action Plan outlined new initiatives that will accelerate the critical areas of a startup ecosystem, which are capital, talent, and quality of startups. Meanwhile, a total of 193 companies were awarded the Malaysia Digital status by Malaysia Digital Economic Corp MDEC in the first quarter of 2024. Digital Minister Gobind Singh Dio says half of the recipients were information technology or infotech companies, leveraging technologies such as the blockchain, Web3, and artificial intelligence.
We have also recently signed an MOU with the world's leading pre-accelerator, Trapper University, to set up a base here in Kuala Lumpur, which would be its first campus outside Silicon Valley. This is vital in supporting and spearheading the pipeline of VCs and startups looking to enter and expand here in Malaysia.
Malaysia Digital status is awarded by MDEC to eligible companies participating in any of Malaysia's digital activities offering a set of incentives, rights and privileges to enable them to operate, expand and invest in the country. Gobin said Malaysia's digital economy is an important pillar to the country's economy, contributing 23% of the GDP.
High-tech companies were very pleased to have with us
There is currently no urgent need to repatriate Malaysians from Lebanon, Jordan and Iran following the Iran-Israeli conflict. Foreign Minister Datuk Seri Muhammad Hassan says the ministry is closely monitoring the situation of Malaysians in these three countries and will take appropriate actions to ensure their safety. Last Friday, Israel launched an attack on Iran in retaliation for Tehran's attack, where Iran launched 300 drones and guided missiles towards Israel last weekend, though most of them were intercepted. Iran's attack was in response to Israel's bombing of targets in Syria earlier this month, including the Iranian consulate in Damascus. Muhammad hoped that the conflict would de-escalate soon and that it would not divert to Malaysia and other countries from their focus on efforts to defend the plight of oppressed Palestinians. Separately, Muhammad said no Malaysians are affected by the floods in Dubai, the city's worst flood in 75 years. Time for a quick break. We'll be right back with more.
Daulat Tuanku.
Terdapat sedikit kebimbangan berkaitan dengan peningkatan kos sara hidup dan juga bagaimana untuk orang ramai mengimbangi peningkatan kos itu dengan perbelanjaan hari raya nanti. Sepanjang bulan Ramadan nanti, cuaca dijangka panas kering sepanjang 30 hari berkenaan.
Peniaga makanan di Bazar Ramadan dinasihatkan supaya jujur dalam menyediakan makanan, terutamanya dari sudut kualiti dan penjagaan makanan.
A survey by ISIS Yusof Ishaq Institute found that China has become the prevailing choice if countries in Southeast Asia were forced to align itself in the ongoing US-China rivalry. The State of Southeast Asia Survey 2024 found that China remains the most influential in economic and political strategic power in the region, outpacing the US in both domains. In a notable shift in sentiments, the survey found that China has experienced a surge in popularity in Southeast Asia, climbing from 38.9% of overall respondents picking China as the preferred alignment choice last year, compared to 50.5% this year. This trend is particularly evident among respondents from Malaysia, Indonesia, Laos, Brunei, and Thailand. Meanwhile, the US has seen a decline in its popularity, dropping from 61.1% last year to 49.5% this year, with majority support coming from Philippines, Vietnam, and Singapore. While most respondents believe that China remains the most influential economic and political strategic power in the region, more than two-thirds of the respondents expressed worries about China's economic and political influence. At the same time, more than half welcomed the U.S.'s economic influence in the region. However, the ASEAN bloc still recognizes China as the most strategically relevant partner, despite close to half of respondents believing that ASEAN should enhance its resilience and unity to fend off pressures from the two major powers. The survey was conducted from 3rd January to 23rd February 2024 with 1,994 respondents from academia, business, government, civil society, and the media. In other news, the Indonesian Constitutional Court has upheld Defence Minister Prabowo Subianto's election victory in February, rejecting claims by his two rivals that the election was marred by fraud. In its decision, the court rejected all claims by Anies Baswedan that Prabowo's win depended on fraud and partisanship of President Jokowi, whose son Gibran Raka Buming Raka was Prabowo's running mate. The other former candidate to dispute the result was Ganjar Pranowo, a former Central Java governor. The court ruled that there was no evidence of systematic fraud and presidential meddling, nor that state bodies, regional officials, and social assistants had been mobilized to sway polls in the world's third largest democracy. Losing presidential candidate Anies and Pranowo have both separately alleged there were state interference to favor Prabowo, who won by a huge margin, and had complained that Gibran should not have been allowed to take part. The administration and Prabowo had rejected the allegations. Now, the court decision brings an end to all election disputes. Over in China, nearly 60,000 people were evacuated from their homes in Guangdong, as days of heavy rain caused massive flooding in China's most populous province. 3 people have died so far, while 11 have gone missing. Rescuers on boats raced to evacuate trapped residents, and helicopters were used to rescue villagers caught in rural landslides. The southern Chinese province has been hit by unusually heavy rains since Thursday. The powerful storms have brought an earlier than usual start to the annual flooding season in the region. Flights have been cancelled and delayed at Guangzhou's international airport, while schools have been closed in at least 3 cities. Much of Guangdong is part of the low-lying Pearl River Delta, which is prone to flooding due to rising sea levels and storm surges. The delta is a major manufacturing base in China and one of the country's most densely populated regions, with Guangdong alone home to 127 million people. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has criticized Elon Musk and his social media platform X after the company refused to comply with a government order to take down posts and videos of a knife attack on a church bishop in Sydney last week. X, along with Meta, were ordered to remove the footage, but X's response was to block the video to Australian IP addresses only. This means the posts were still accessible globally.
I find it extraordinary that X chose not to comply and are trying to argue their case. This isn't about freedom of expression. This is about the dangerous implications that can occur when things that are simply not true, that everyone knows is not true, are replicated and weaponised in order to cause division, and in this case to promote negative statements and potentially to just inflame what was a very difficult situation. And social media has a social responsibility.
X said it will challenge the takedown order. The case will return to court on Wednesday for an argument about a permanent suppression. Meanwhile, Tesla has slashed prices in a number of its key markets, including China and Germany, following price cuts in the US. The company is struggling with falling sales and an intensifying price war for electric vehicles, especially against Chinese EVs. The price cut comes as Tesla, led by billionaire CEO Elon Musk, reported that its global vehicle deliveries fell in the first quarter for the first time in almost 4 years. Tesla, the EV market leader, sparked an EV price war more than a year ago by aggressively cutting prices at the expense of profit margins. US prices for the Model Y, Model X, and Model S were cut by $2,000 on Friday. Tesla also cut the starting price of the revised Model 3 in China by $1,930. There were also price cuts in many other countries in Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. Musk said last Monday that Tesla would lay off more than 10% of its global workforce as sales decline. That's all we have for you on AWANI tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Saraya Mia. Good night.